Hello, everyone. My name is Anjali Arondekar. I'm a very, very ancient professor in feminist studies. I look fantastic, but I'm quite old, and I've actually been in the department for over 20 years now. One of the things that's been the most delightful about being at Santa Cruz and teaching in feminist studies is that we have amazing alumni who do wonderful, inspiring things. And it's my real pleasure today to have a very brief conversation with one such wonderful alum who had graduated from Santa Cruz in 2018. Isabell Retamoza, who is now a publications manager at the National Association of Women's Lawyers. And she graduated with a hefty double major in feminist studies and literature, and began her career as an administrative coordinator for this organization, and has now moved up to becoming a publications manager and is doing some remarkable work. So we're going to just chat for a few minutes and get to know Isabell a little bit, but mostly just to find out, I always get this question from parents, right, who say, our kids love your kids is an infantilizing term, but our children, bio, otherwise, love feminist studies, but what are they going to do with that major, right? And this is a question that I still get asked after all these years. So Isabell, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, what you do first, and then a little bit about how the feminist studies major has helped you, if at all. And be candid. If it hasn't, you can let us know that as well, and we're eager to learn.
Yeah. So first, thank you for speaking with me. It's such an honor to speak with you because you're one of my favorite professors from school, and I'm fangirling a little bit, but I'm gonna tone it down.
No, now our roles are reversed. I'm the fan person, so go for it.
I'm adjusting a little bit. So like you said, for the past 4 years, I've worked for the National Association of Women Lawyers, also known as NAL. And to provide a little background on the organization, we are the oldest women's bar association in the US, founded in 1899. And the mission is to advance women in the legal profession and advocate for equity under the law. And so as publications manager for that organization, my role is supporting NAL's thought leadership and advocacy efforts, which include the NAL survey and research on the advancement of diversity, equity, inclusion in the legal profession, the Women Lawyers Journal, which is NAL's biannual publication that has been around since 1911, and also NAL's advocacy and amicus efforts. And my feminist studies degree has absolutely impacted my job. I use it every day. So especially for my NAL's advocacy and thought leadership efforts, which is the main part of my job and what I mainly support on issues such as gender and racial equity and justice, voting rights, pay equity, reproductive justice, gender-based violence. I'm able to speak and write about all of these issues with NAL members, attorneys, and on behalf of the organization effectively and thoughtfully because of my degree.
I think your articulateness on this question is very reflective of the wonderful work you're doing. Maybe I'll ask you a question to take you back in time a little bit. You graduated in 2018, which is fairly recent. Can you tell us a little bit about, why you decided to do a double major in feminist studies and literature? Now, the reason I'm bringing up the date is if this had been 20 years ago, I started teaching at Santa Cruz in 2001, I would have asked the question very differently for someone who looked like you and me. But now there are thankfully much more folks of color, differently gendered people. So diversity has become less of a challenge, though it continues to be one. So I'm very curious to know what motivated you. Was it something that you decided after you got to Santa Cruz, or you already had some sense, that you were keen on feminist work and you wanted to do, that as a model of study?
Yeah, well, I started at UCSC as a proposed literature major, but then I saw for fall quarter freshman year Introduction to Feminist Studies with Professor Arondekar, and the subsequent lectures, readings, and the conversations that followed from that class, and all the classes I took at Feminist Studies, but specifically that class, inspired me to think critically with a lens that I'd never had, and gave me a language for the things that I had witnessed and experienced, but had never been able to communicate effectively or see clearly. So I was hooked. So I really owe you, your class, and the department and faculty for giving me this vital critical lens that allows me to speak broadly, that like the issues of gender and racial equity are not results of human nature, but are systemic issues that are fortunately susceptible to radical change. And so it was just, all the classes I took were so inspiring and impactful for me and how I see the world today. And how I'm able to process all of the horrible news that we see every day, and understand the systems and structures that inform everything. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we owe it to your generation as well to continue the mantle of feminist hope, because it seems receding very quickly in the world we live in. And thank you for the kind words about my course, but I'm sure you also took other courses like my colleague Gina Dent's Women in the Law. So perhaps you could say a little bit more about how, I'm veering off script here, but I feel like, we could have a real conversation here. But how do you feel like the interdisciplinarity that we try to teach in feminist studies, right? Particularly, for example, my course was an intro course. I don't know if you took any others, but Gina Dent's course, which is about thinking about the law in the same way. How did that help your capacity to think more, capaciously? And also literature, which is, also my background, teaches us to think of the world in critical ways and to theorize it as well. So I want to give due credit to my comrades in literature as well for nudging you along, as it were. So say a little bit more about your other courses that you took, that helped you sort of distill a lot of this information.
Yeah, Gina Dent's class, Women in the Law, was especially impactful for me because it was the first time I heard the phrase feminist jurisprudence. And that really just like clicked something in me, and that sent me on a course of thinking about law school. And and because of that class, I mean, because of that class, that's why I live in Chicago. That's why I'm currently preparing to apply for law school in the fall. Just being able to look at the legal system as an extremely flawed system, a system that is it's built and sustained by a white supremacist colonial hierarchy, but also recognizing that it can change. It is susceptible to change. So that class definitely had an impact. And my literature classes as well, Professor Kylan's Shakespeare classes. Going into those classes, I had no interest in Shakespeare. It fulfilled a credit, and I was just like, okay, I'll get through it. But his lectures and his understandings and teachings on Shakespeare allowed me to look at Shakespeare through a critical lens through my feminist studies degree, and eventually led me to write my senior thesis that combined the feminist studies and literature degrees into one for that thesis, and allowed me to look at Shakespeare and colonialism and in that critical lens. And then also the history of consciousness, that department, when that department had a class for feminist studies, I always took those classes because those were just fascinating, mind-bending classes.
I think, Isabel, you're sort of the model person we should put on our website as someone who is eager to learn, willing to expand, and endlessly interrogate. So I think, I mean, we're going to run out of time. I wish I could have a longer conversation with you, but instead of asking you, you know, how feminist studies helped you professionally, I think that's abundantly clear now because your work and what you thought about are clearly connected. I wanted to ask you to say a little bit, if you can, you know, about what you would urge folks who are interested in feminist studies to think about, you know, because the domain has changed so much, right? As you said, abolition, jurisprudence. I mean, there are very different ethical, political concerns that animate my feminist landscape now than they did even 2 years ago. The pandemic has changed everything. So what's the critical political currency for feminist studies in your mind as an intellectual major? What would you offer as a kind of, you know, incitement to learn if there are, you know, because this is going to be heard by folks who are curious about what we do, and they would rather listen to you than to me. So what would you say? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you've just made me really excited about everything again. So.
Yeah, I mean, I encouraged, and when I was at UCSC, I encouraged all of my friends to just pick up a feminist studies major. I mean, you're already doing astrophysics, just pull up the feminist studies major. And just because of like I said, the critical lens that it gives you, it applies to everything. I mean, the way that I see the world is entirely because of that degree, and my literature degree. Especially living in a city like Chicago, you know, it's the city of neighborhoods, but it is racially and socioeconomically segregated, and being able to participate in the change that this city is currently experiencing is I can do that effectively and thoughtfully because of my degree. I think also with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, my organization wanted to act, wanted to, you know, write statements and partner with other organizations, but they really didn't know how. And so because of my feminist studies degree, I was able to really lead, or not lead it, but be a part of that process. And because I'm able to write and speak on these issues, and I just was able to do that because of this degree. I think also the feminist studies departments, gender studies departments are more important than ever. They are being, you know, their funding is being cut. I mean, everywhere, all over the country, we're seeing them being removed, or just entirely cut from, you know, students being able to take courses from those departments. And I think that makes them even more important, because that's how powerful these departments are. That's how powerful they make their students. I mean, without this degree, I wouldn't have moved to Chicago, I wouldn't be in this organization, and I wouldn't be applying for law school. And I wouldn't know the level of impact that I can make.
Those are really wonderful and promising words for us to end our brief conversation on. But most importantly, I want to thank you for sharing a little bit of your day with us, but also to wish you an enormous amount of luck and success in your future endeavors. And as I said to Isabel before we began, that I hope to meet her in person and buy her a real drink to celebrate her many successes. And we are now comrades more than teacher and student. And I look forward to building that relationship. So thank you, Isabel, and stay in touch with me, okay? If you're ever in LA, this is off now. They'll edit all this out. If you're ever in LA, send me an email, and you know, and we can catch up. But it's been really, really lovely to get a little bit of glimpse about what you do, and I look forward to learning more. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.